Storm Tracker. First, fast, accurate.
October 8th, 2001.
Day 2 of the war in Afghanistan. And as the U.S. continues the fight abroad,
well, of course, the attacks are just one small part. These raids are one small part of the entire effort.
How do you prepare for the battle at home?
Strengthen and help protect our transportation systems, our food and water systems, and our critical infrastructure.
All customers will be allowed just one piece of carry-on baggage. And
we want people to have preparations and not panic.
I don't think that the terrorist attacks are over.
Tonight, guarding the home front as America fights back.
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
This war is not going to be done with quickly. It is not going to be won easily, and there will be some form of retaliation here on the home front. Those are not the gloomy assessments of anti-war activists. They are the hard realities being laid out for the American public by some of the very men who bear the responsibility of leading the war effort. Speaking on this second day of U.S. bombing and missile strikes, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld acknowledged their limitations. It is unlikely, he said, that the airstrikes will rock the Taliban back on their heels. They have very few targets that are of high value, that are manageable from the air, end quote. The conflict, said Mr. Rumsfeld, is much like the Cold War in that it may take years and that it'll need to be fought on many fronts. America's most vulnerable front clearly will be here at home, where we can expect more terrorist attacks and a diminished sense of security. More on that subject in general and those 2 anthrax cases in Boca Raton, Florida in particular, later in the broadcast. But we begin by looking at that bombing campaign over Afghanistan, which seems to be ending almost as quickly as it began. Joining us from the Pentagon, National Security Correspondent John McWethy. It seems as though the bombing campaign is almost over. How come, and what's next?
Almost over. It's just begun, but they are already discovering, Ted, that there are so few targets worth spending the money to drop a bomb on that after just a few days, they may have to call a pause, see if there are any other targets that need to be struck. What comes next? Probably a very long and almost invisible phase of this, and this is when American Special Operations Forces move quietly into Afghanistan and begin a long process of surveillance.
John, we know that there are about 1,000 U.S. troops just north of Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. Today, the government of Tajikistan said that it was prepared to let the United States use facilities there. What are those people going to be used for?
The very large number of troops already in Uzbekistan, more than 1,000, a lot of those are just going to provide security for a base. What's going to be in the base? The government of Uzbekistan is saying they're going to be using special operations forces for search and rescue for American downed pilots, if there ever is such a thing. However, other Pentagon sources say that is going to be a major operating base for a number of different types of special operations troops. They will be going into Afghanistan. They will be doing surveillance of the roads and surveillance of suspected areas where Osama bin Laden and his followers are in operation.
Very, very quickly, John, it looks as though we've seen pretty much what we're going to see. I mean, from here on in, it's really below the radar.
It is going to be below the radar. In fact, a lot of the bombing campaign has been below the radar as well. But what now is going to happen will be virtually invisible and very difficult for the public or the press to judge whether it is a success or not.
John McWethy, thanks very much. This battle against terrorism has brought a host of new U.S. allies. One of the most important and precariously placed is Pakistan's President Pervez Musharraf. In Islamabad tonight, here's ABC's Dan Harris.
On September 10th, Pervez Musharraf was the unelected military president of a pariah nation. On September 11th, he became a central player, however reluctant, in a global alliance against terrorism. Not an easy transition. This morning, for example, President Musharraf tried again to reassure the citizens of the world's second-largest Muslim country about the wisdom of supporting an attack upon a Muslim nation right next door.
This operation should not be perceived as a war against Afghanistan or the people of Afghanistan, the Afghans. It's an action against terrorism, and their sanctuaries.
At virtually the same moment, protests, some of them violent, in the streets of major cities such as Islamabad, Peshawar, and Quetta. Musharraf is a man in the middle, caught between domestic demands from fundamentalist Muslims and massive international pressure from the likes of British Prime Minister Tony Blair. He's also contending with a growing refugee problem, a sputtering economy, an enormously unstable Afghanistan to his west, and a perennially hostile India to his east. Musharraf negotiates the conflicting worlds smoothly, switching between military uniforms, traditional Pakistani garb, and Western suits, depending on the audience. But at times, he looks like a man bearing a heavy load. Nonetheless, analysts say Musharraf has a firm grip on power. He's just reshuffled the military, replacing two top generals thought to be too hardline, too pro-Taliban. And the protesters may not pose much of a threat to his authority.
Thus far, President Musharraf seems to be having reasonable success dealing with the Islamic fundamentalists. There are protests, such as this one, but by Pakistani standards, they are relatively small and controlled.
Because you do not show the majority of the people who are silently supporting, you know, and wanting desperately that peace and stability should return to this region.
While it may sound surprising to some in the West, many Pakistanis feel Musharraf's bloodless coup in 1999 actually saved them from a chaotic and corrupt civil government. Right now, Musharraf offers more promise for the U.S. than any other leader in the region. It may be a shotgun wedding, but Musharraf has been transformed from a dictator to be kept at arm's length to a vital ally overnight.
And joining us now from Islamabad, where it is already Tuesday morning, ABC News correspondent Dan Harris. Dan, television has a certain magnifier effect so that occasionally you look at things like these street demonstrations and you come to believe that Pakistan is coming apart at the seams. How bad is it?
It's really not that bad. As you say, there is a magnifier effect. It's very tempting to show these pictures of these protests and to make it look like the country is riven by strife. Yesterday, there were sizable protests in Quetta. Those pictures have been shown throughout the Western media, and the protests did get out of control. One person was killed. Some stores and UN offices were burnt and vandalized and looted. Having said that, though, by Pakistani standards, the protests are not that bad. They were widespread throughout the country yesterday in many of the provincial capitals, Peshawar, Islamabad, where I am right now, and in Quetta. But this is a country that's running smoothly. There is, as one of the commentators I've spoken with, a silent majority that actually backs up Musharraf and his decision, which is not altogether, well, let me say, it is distasteful in some quarters, mildly, that he has decided to join with the West, but it has not divided this country. There is, by some estimates, about 15% that have pro-Taliban, pro-Osama bin Laden sentiments.
What about what is clearly the campaign coming here from Washington to reassure Muslims around the world that this is not a campaign directed against them, but a very specific, targeted campaign against the Taliban? Are people accepting that?
Musharraf is definitely making that argument on behalf of the West, and I think on behalf of himself, to make sure that the protests and the people who sympathize with the people who have hit the streets do not grow out of control. Musharraf has said time and time again that, just as Bush has said and Blair has said, that this is not an attack on the Afghani people, it's an attack on terrorism and terrorists, and that this is not an attack on Islam. There are the people who hit the streets who do believe that this is an attack on Islam and it's time for jihad, but as I said, the sense that I'm getting from the people that I've spoken to, both in the political world and those who observe the political world in a media sense, is that most people, the silent majority, do not believe that Islam is under attack here.
Dan Harris, thanks very much. Reporting from Islamabad. In the wake of the U.S. bombing raids, the question is, will terrorists retaliate? And as evidence mounts of what may be a deliberate spread of anthrax in Florida, have they retaliated already? That when we come back.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Lexus.
I know something of attraction. I know something of power. The new car, I think it knows too.
The all-new Lexus ES 300, a new world of luxury.
Johnson, I'd like to see some ideas on saving the company money. I'll be back first thing in the morning.
Think. That's the dumbest. Think. Help.
Well, Johnson, Staples. That'll save us a lot of money. You are a genius.
Get extra savings for your business all this month at Staples.
The United States and Britain continue to bomb Afghanistan. ABC News will have complete coverage of events, and tomorrow on World News Tonight, we'll have a complete report on the day.
To help keep America rolling, Team Chevrolet in Smyrna is offering some fantastic deals on every new Chevrolet in stock. A new Chevy Cavalier, $149 a month. A new Chevy S10, $169 a month. Ladies, and of course you guys too, Team Chevrolet has your next vehicle at your price and on your terms. All with 0% interest and no payments till 2002 at Team Chevrolet in Smyrna. We're 9 money-saving minutes south of Hickory Hollow Mall on Murfreesboro Road. Try us. You'll be glad you did.
You know, I'm trying to have a relationship with God. I just came out of drugs, just came out of illicit sex, just came out of a bunch of cussing and fussing, and I got saved, and I want to have a relationship with God until I discovered it's going to require me to renew my mind and change. Am I willing to change? Am I willing to change?
Watch Changing Your World, broadcast Sundays on this station.
Last Friday, a Florida man died after being exposed to inhaled anthrax. This was the first known fatality from inhaled anthrax in the United States in over 20 years. Today, a co-worker of that man who died was found to have been exposed to anthrax, and additional anthrax bacteria were found on the keyboard of a computer where the two men worked. We turn now to Kyle Olson, who advises state and local governments on biological and chemical terrorism. And Kyle, if you would explain, first of all, what the difference is between inhaled anthrax and natural anthrax.
Well, they're both natural. The difference being that typically anthrax is a disease of the skin. People get it from working with hides or with wool. It comes from animals in nature, and it's commonly a problem for people involved in tannery or leather.
And what is so rare, then, about the inhaled form?
Well, the inhaled form is the product of spores getting into the lungs. And frankly, the spores that cause this disease are not naturally found in the air. They're not found in the kinds of concentrations that would cause this disease. The key distinction being natural or cutaneous anthrax on the skin is generally not fatal. Inhalational anthrax is fatal in over 80% of the cases.
Why is it that you believe the chance of this having happened accidentally is so remote?
We had one case of inhalational anthrax back in the mid-70s. Since then, nothing. Now, all of a sudden, we have a cluster of 2 in the same building in less than a week and a half. The odds of that happening are really very, very remote, to the point of vanishing. Moreover, the evidence that I'm seeing right now or hearing from people that are doing investigations show that it's not just on keyboards but on other surfaces in that building. Not the kind of thing you're going to find as far as a natural place to find anthrax in any case.
What does it suggest to you? In other words, how would it have been delivered?
Well, there's been some speculation it might have come in a package through the mailroom or something like that. I think it's more likely that we're going to be seeing some sort of use of the ventilation or air conditioning system in that building. A delivery perhaps through the air intakes of the building, then moving through the building with cooling air.
I thought the spores just died or lost their power to infect after a given time?
No, actually, anthrax spores are incredibly hardy. Unlike a lot of other biological organisms, once they go into the spore form, they are resistant to sunlight, they're resistant to heat. In essence, they go into spore form so that they can ride out bad environmental conditions. In their spore form, they're almost indestructible.
There is no reason, is there, to naturally assume that this was done by some terrorist group?
You know, the key here is that this could have been done by another individual or a group of individuals who are trying to take advantage of the focus on Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. On the other hand, we certainly can't, nor should we, rule out that this is linked to that particular conflict.
Very quickly, Kyle, how difficult is it to prepare spores of the kind that you could send by mail or get into a building through the ventilation system?
For an individual to do it on his own, very difficult. For someone with the resources of, for example, a state sponsor or a large, wealthy organization, it would be just a matter of time.
So that does seem to mitigate against the odd individual.
I'm doubtful we've got a lone gunman.
All right, Kyle Olson, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Ted.
All over the country today, law enforcement and civic leaders grappled with how to defend against an unknown threat. They tried to think like terrorists and to put into place some kind of protection. From Los Angeles now, here's Judy Muller.
Along with the rest of the country, Los Angeles is on high alert. Early this morning, concrete barricades were hurriedly put in place around City Hall and police headquarters, part of an effort to deter terrorist attacks.
We have some very visible symbols, and as we say in law enforcement, we're a target-rich environment.
We have performing arts theaters, we have Universal Studios, Disneyland, and because of that threat, we've been on a heightened alert and continue to remain there.
The sheriff showed us around the Emergency Operations Center for LA and Orange counties, a bomb-proof building in an undisclosed location. So tell me who sits in this inner circle during an emergency.
This inner circle is made up of the managers of any crisis, disaster, or terrorist attack.
The County Operations Center is linked by state-of-the-art technology with the city's operations unit.
Every city department is here, fire department, you got airports, animal regulations, building.
This afternoon, the chief convened an emergency meeting of those officials who essentially serve as a municipal joint chiefs of staff for an update on security.
I'm very pleased to report that all is going smoothly at LAX.
Airport officials plan to extend restrictions on ways passengers can be dropped off at terminals and hope to deploy more National Guard troops. The Department of Water and Power is testing water supplies daily now rather than weekly. The police department has officers on 12-hour shifts, despite the fact there have been no credible threats. And all ships entering the Port of Los Angeles are being searched. Like many other U.S. cities, downtown L.A. is now a maze of barriers, police cars, and tow-away signs, especially around government buildings. So that even as Americans are being urged to get back to business as usual, they are surrounded by very real reminders of these most unusual times. These precautions are meant to create a feeling of safety, and yet no one underestimates the terrorist's advantage of surprise. It strikes me that you've got all of this planning, all of this preparation, and yet when it comes right down to it, you have no idea where, when, and who.
We think that we have some indicators. That's why we have the early warning terrorism group that tells us in advance what are the clues, what are the lead-up information when something of a terrorist act will occur.
The Terrorism Early Warning Group is an interagency task force that provides LA law enforcement with federal and international intelligence on terrorists, including bin Laden.
The question is, what is his objective now? Where will he and his allies attack next? What are they trying to do at this phase of their operation? Because this is a long-term event, and what can we do to counter that?
Good question. The sheriff seems confident that everything that can be done is being done.
Whether it's a person taking hostages with dynamite wrapped around him, whether it's a person thinking they can hijack airplanes, whether it's an individual who thinks they can throw chemical agents into the air and cause massive amounts of injuries, we have all of the various skilled individuals that are necessary to go out, deploy, intervene, intercept.
Terrorist threats are not the only concern. Threats against Arabs are on the increase, including owners of 7-Eleven convenience stores.
I asked all of the police departments as well as sheriff stations to make contacts with the owners and to give extra patrol checks, and so we've been doing that.
At the same time, law enforcement is encouraging citizens to report suspicious activity, to act as the eyes and ears for police.
Many of those calls might be erroneous calls, but we shouldn't stop calling, because the one you don't call on will be the very one that we're all concerned about.
Parks believes Americans must adapt to a new reality, one that requires constant vigilance.
But it requires the city and its population to continue to be cooperative and understand they're going to be inconvenienced for a long period of time.
For a long period of time.
I think what we knew as normal September the 10th, we'll never get back to that level of normalcy.
LA officials are talking about deactivating the operations center by week's end if no terrorist attack occurs. But that if has taken up residence in our emotional landscape, high alert or not. I'm Judy Muller for Nightline in Los Angeles.
Aboard an aircraft carrier in the Indian Ocean are more than 5,500 crew members, all focused on one thing: tonight's attack against Afghanistan. A report from that carrier when we come back.
I like that one. I don't like that one too, though. But then this one might be better. What do you think?
What are the tires for?
Tire swing?
At Sears Auto Center, Michelin Weatherwise tires are on sale. America's #1 tire retailer, Sears. Where else?
After 26 years of marriage, Tom and I realized we're a little different from each other. We do everything together, but each in our own way. Except for one thing. For aspirin therapy, our doctor says we should both take the same dose, a single 81 milligram St. Joseph aspirin. The dosage doctors recommend most for aspirin therapy, because too much aspirin just isn't a good idea. For anybody, St. Joseph aspirin. Trust it with all your heart.
Imagine combining the stain-fighting power of Efferdent and freshening power of Listerine. You'd get Efferdent Plus. It's extra fresh, and nothing gets your dentures cleaner. Efferdent Clean, Listerine Fresh. That's Efferdent Plus.
When they need to get it fast, count on express mail from the U.S. Postal Service.
We want hug.
The United States Postal Service is everywhere, so you can be anywhere.
That new boss is from another planet.
Totally spaced out at that meeting.
Hey, what's that on your desk?
ABCnews.com. Ready when you are.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag.
Of the United States of America.
And to the republic for which it stands.
One nation.
One nation.
Under God.
Indivisible.
With liberty.
With liberty and justice for all.
And nothing to drive. Call 1-800-NEW-RIDE.
At Beeman, we'll help you get the credit you need, the credit you deserve. All you need is your good name and a regular paycheck, and you can drive away. Others may sell you one of these, but not at Beeman. You can drive one of these.
Call us at 9 and you'll be driving by 5. Call 1-800-NEW-RIDE. All you gotta have is a payday. Call 1-800-NEW-RIDE.
Many of the attacks against Afghanistan tonight came from aircraft launched from carriers in the Indian Ocean. There is little that the Pentagon will tell us about the results of those attacks and how they were conducted, but the Pentagon has permitted a handful of reporters aboard those aircraft carriers. One of them, ABC's Jeffrey Kaufman, aboard the USS Carl Vinson.
This is where the air assault began. F-18s and F-14s launched into the night sky and headed north to fire their missiles at Taliban targets. These two pilots were in the first squadron out. Fearing reprisals, the Navy will not allow us to use their last names.
To me, tonight was about giving back America the confidence and letting them know, hey, we're out here and we can take care of whatever we need to.
For 3 weeks, the 5,500 crew members of the USS Vinson and the USS Enterprise have been preparing for this moment. The two carriers were redirected here to bolster the U.S. Fifth Fleet that is permanently stationed in this region. This is the kind of warfare these aircraft carriers were designed for. They can circle safely here in the waters of the Indian Ocean, but they can thrust their power 600 miles north into the hostile territory of Afghanistan. For Captain Rick Wren, the assaults came on his second day as commanding officer of the USS Carl Vinson.
An aircraft carrier is 4.5 acres that can carry an entire air wing. And so our mobility, our ability to stay on station for long periods of time, effectively, dial 911 Navy, and we're there.
Every pilot and every plane that went out on the first night of attacks returned safely.
This is a historic event. This will go down in history, and this event will be remembered for a long time.
Remembered for the first strike in what promises to be a long war against terrorism. For Nightline, I'm Jeffrey Kaufman aboard the USS Carl Vinson, south of Pakistan in the Indian Ocean.
I'll be back in a moment with the latest news update.
To receive a daily email announcement about each evening's Nightline and a preview of special broadcasts, log on to the Nightline page at abcnews.com.
Look, I know Circuit City's doing this expo thing, but we're busy. Get what you need, we're out of here. Agreed?
Yes.
We know how you feel. It's Expo 2001. 30 days of non-stop demonstrations of what's hot and what's next in electronics. September 30th through October 31st. Circuit City, we're with you.
I can't let old Mr. Hetherington take you away, Red. You need to be free again. Go on now! Get out of here! Please. You have to go.
With a leather interior and the available Honda DVD entertainment system,
I'll never forget you!
it's one of the joys of parenthood.
Sorry, guys. How was dance class?
The Odyssey from Honda.
Tuesday on an all-new Philly.
Never a dull moment around you, Miss McGuire.
These defense lawyers know their clients well.
I'm a dancer. I do a lot of backbends.
I think I've seen you dance. Maybe a little too well.
That's Grandpa!
Jeez, what were you thinking?
From the creator of NYPD Blue.
Is this your father?
Yes, Your Honor.
Don't point your finger at me.
Shut up, Daddy.
Did he flip me off?
No.
On an all-new Philly. Tuesday at 10/9 Central on ABC. Viewer discretion advised.
Titans fans, it's football season, and that can only mean one thing: another season of the Emmy Award-winning show, Monday Night Live with Jeff Fisher, live from Opry Mills. It's the only show that lets you get up close and personal with your favorite Titan players. Hosted by News 2's John Dwyer and Tennessee Titans head coach Jeff Fisher, Monday Night Live gives you the inside scoop on Titans football all season long. Mondays at 6:30 p.m., it's Monday Night Live with Jeff Fisher, only on News 2, sponsored by KFC.
We've all seen the devastation, the pain and loss of life caused by the recent tragic events. But during these trying times, there is hope. Hello, I'm Amy Grant. To honor lost loved ones, to help those fighting for their lives, take action. Visit your American Red Cross and give the gift of life. Giving blood and donating funds not only saves lives, but gives us all hope for a better tomorrow. Join me and News 2 in giving today, tomorrow, or in days to come. Your gifts will make a difference.
Recapping the latest news now, the sun has already risen, and it is Tuesday morning in Afghanistan after a night of U.S. bombing. Pentagon sources say half as many bombs were dropped last night as were dropped the first night of the assault, and the campaign appears to be quickly running out of significant targets. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
You can order a transcript or video cassette of this or any other Nightline broadcast by dialing 1-800-CALL-ABC.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Last Tuesday, all of America had the same reaction to Bob Patterson.
Thank you, Lord, for hearing my prayers.
Then, an all-new Spin City with big news.
I'm having a baby.
Don't worry, it's not Charlie's. Phew.
Why are you so relieved? We never had sex.
Force a habit. It all starts at 9/8 Central, ABC Tuesday.
News 2 at WKRN.com.
Right now, I am so broke. I'm so broke right now. I'm in between jobs. I'm not getting any money from my parents. So, like, right now, I have no money.
Things you shouldn't tell your date. A cautionary tale. Tonight on a very special Rendezvous.